a very powerful god who hides his true power and starts helping people, but some things happen that make him use his true power. So I suggest you stay with me until the end of this fascinating anime. Hi guys, for today's video we have a very well-made and attractive anime called Noragami, which I suggest you don't miss at all. Before we start, like the video and hit the subscribe button to stay up to date with our new videos. In the first scene, we see a god named Yato fighting and defeating a phantom snake that attacked a school. To defeat the phantoms, he needs his own regalia named Tomyun, and with her help he was able to defeat the school's phantoms. After the fight, Regalia tells her god that she is tired of working with a weak god and wants to find a better one. Now that Yato doesn't have any regalia anymore, he can't fight the phantoms, so he starts helping people in simple tasks. One day, Yato receives a call that a cat is missing. He accepts the job and looks for the missing cat. When Yato is looking for the missing cat, he runs into some high school girls. Suddenly, one of the girls named Hiyuri saves Yato from an accident. But when she looks back, she sees her body on the street. In the hospital, the doctor tells Hiyuri that you're not seriously injured and you are fine. When she asks her friend about Yato, no one has seen him and Hiyuri is surprised. It is night and Yato comes to Hiyuri and introduces himself to her. But Hiyuri is so scared that she makes Yato run away from the window. Hiyuri is looking for the missing cat and she is looking for answers. Night falls and Yato finally finds the cat, but suddenly a big frog attacks him. Since Yato doesn't have any regalia, he can't fight Phantom well. Meanwhile, Hiyuri comes and saves Yato. After they escape from Phantom, Yato tells Hiyuri that your soul is separating from your body, which is evident from the tail on your back. He says that you're now between the two worlds of near shore and far shore. That's why you are now a half phantom. Hiyuri tells Yato to help me become a human again, which Yato accepts. We see Hiyuri, who is unconscious and his soul is separated from his body again. Hiyuri's soul decides to wander around and have fun that she notices evil phantoms. She goes to see Yato and Yato tells her that I am working on making you better. Yato also tells her that you have to be very careful because there are many phantoms trying to possess you. Yato doesn't have any regalia, so he can't help her. Hiyuri decides to find a regalia for Yato, but she's not very successful. It's night and Hiyuri calls Yato and says that I have found a new regalia for you. When Yato goes to see Hiyuri, suddenly a phantom attacks them and Yato is injured. Hiyuri and Yato hide behind a wall and Yato tells Hiyuri that your tail is holding you between these two worlds, so you must be careful not to cut your tail in any way. Meanwhile, the phantom attacks them again, and Yato notices a lonely soul by the wall. He turns the soul into a sword and kills the phantom with it. Now that soul named Yuki becomes Yato's regalia. After some time, when Yato and Yuki spend time together, Hiyuri invites them to a meal and there Hiyuri and Yuki get to know each other. Hiyuri asks him about Yuki's past, but he doesn't remember anything. Yato's phone rings and a job is found for him, and Yato goes there with Yuki and Hiyuri. It turns out that the person who contacted Yato is a god of learning named Lord Tenjin. He says that a phantom hand must be killed, and since I'm too busy, I'll leave it to you. Suddenly Yato's previous regalia appears, and it is revealed that she's now working with Lord Tenjin and has changed her name to Mayu. She takes Yato's team to the phantom's place, and says that this phantom forces people to commit suicide. She also says that Lord Tenjin has created a protective zone so that this phantom doesn't leave the designated area. At first, Yato refuses to fight the phantom because he thinks that the lives of people who want to kill themselves aren't worth saving, but when several phantoms attack Hiyuri, Yato enters the fight. He kills the phantom with the help of Yuki, who turns into a sword. We see a woman named Nora who is spying on Yato and Yuki. The next morning comes and Yato takes Hiyuri and Yuki to see a girl named Kafuku and says that she is his girlfriend. After Yato tries to scam money from Kafuku, a boy who is actually Kafuku's regalia comes and pushes him back, which turns out that Kafuku is also a goddess. When Yato is talking on his phone, Kafuku says that Yato is a lot scarier than he looks. Just at this moment, Yato comes and takes the others with him for a new job he has taken. It turns out that the person who called Yato actually wanted to call his mother before his death. He doesn't have enough money due to his very poor financial condition, and he also can't support his girlfriend. The team realizes that this man's girlfriend is actually Kafuku herself, known as the goddess of poverty. We see that Yato saves this man from death with Yuki's help. In the next scene, the team says goodbye to Kafuku, but Hiyuri waits and asks Kafuku about what she said, and says, "Why did you say that Yato looks scarier than he looks?" She tells Hiyuri about Yato's past and tells her that Yato was known as the god of calamity, and even killed one of his own regalia. In the next scene, Nora sees Yuki and they talk. It turns out that Nora is one of Yato's previous regalia. The next day, Yato teaches Yuki how to draw a borderline to keep the phantoms away. Yuki also learns very quickly, which makes Yato impress. Hiyuri learns about Nora and Yuki's friendship. She requests that Yuki stay with her to prevent his mind from being poisoned, but Yato disagrees with this because he thinks Yuki might have feelings for Hiyuri. But despite Yato's disagreement, Hiyuri takes Yuki home with her. At night, Yato goes to Hiyuri's house and tells her that your house can't take care of Yuki against the phantoms. Despite all this, Hiyuri still doesn't listen to Yato's words and sleeps next to Yuki. In the middle of the night, Yuki is tempted to do bad things, but Yato comes in time and stops him. In the next scene, we see a goddess named Bishamon who is killing phantoms with her lion regalia. Yuki avoids Yato, so Yato tells Hiyuri that I will severely punish Yuki when his thoughts become too impure. It's night, and since Yuki is afraid of the dark, he runs towards the light, and that's when he sees a soul of a lonely girl. Suddenly, some phantoms attack Yuki, and when Yuki tries to save the girl, it turns out that the girl also is a phantom herself. Yato arrives in time and kills the phantom, but since Yuki didn't want to kill the possessed girl, he blames Yato for that. Yuki has hallucinations of phantoms and his thoughts are completely impure. In the next scene, we see that Yuki is stealing a skateboard, but Yato stops him, and at that moment, Hiyuri comes to prevent Yuki from being punished. At this moment, Bishamon appears and attacks Yato. Yato summons Yuki and fights Bishamon. During the fight, when Yuki realizes that Yato has killed one of Bishamon's regalia, he stops fighting, which causes Yato to run away. Hiyuri asks Kafuku and Kodu for help with this situation, which they also accept. Kafuku opens a portal that causes many phantoms to enter the world, but with this distraction, Yato's life is saved, and Bishamon's regalia, whose name is Kazuma, suggests a retreat. Yato is very injured and goes to Nora for help. Nora tells him that I will help you, but I have to become your regalia again, which Yato rejects. Yuki runs away from Yato and goes to Lord Tenjin to get a job like Mayu. But Tenjin rejects his request because he thinks he might become an unreliable companion like Nora. In the next scene, when Hiyuri is looking for Yuki, Kazuma suddenly appears. He tells Hiyuri that I owe Yato a lot and I have to help him get Yuki back. He says Yuki is in a lot of pain because of his thoughts and we have to help him. And if this problem continues, Yato may die. Hiyuri goes to see Yato and Kafuku in a store. Kafuku entrusts his work to Yato and Yato accepts. Then we see that Yuki steals money from the cash register and runs away. Hiyuri tells Yato that you should treat Yuki better. Nora tries to scold Yuki when Yato comes and takes Yuki with him to kill a phantom, but Yuki disobeys again and Yato is forced to kill the monster with holy water. In the next scene, we see that Bishamon goes to meet Kafuku to plan to kill the phantoms. Some time passes and Yuki continues his disobedience and not accepting the reality of his life until one day, Yato gets very sick and falls to the ground. Hiyuri shows Yato to Yuki and says that these are the consequences of what you are doing. Hiyuri and Yuki take Yato to Kafuku. Koru separates Yato and Yuki with a borderline. Kafuku says that Yato can only be saved by punishing Yuki, and this can only be done with an illusion. Any failure in this path will cause Yuki to be eaten by a phantom. It turns out that 3 regalia are needed for this task, and after a lot of searching, Kazuma, Koru, and Tomyun finally agreed to do this. Yuki is possessed by a phantom and refuses to confess his guilt and begins to transform into a phantom. Hiyuri tells Yuki not to cross the line and Yato gathers his strength and manages to convince Yuki to come back to life. These words make Yuki finally confess his guilt and they are both saved. The team goes to Lord Tenjin and Yuki realizes how much Yato worried and cared about him when he wasn't feeling well. Yuki swears to take care of Yato forever. Yato asks Lord Tenjin for help to restore Hiyuri to her normal state. But he understands that, for this, all of Hiyuri's ties must be severed so that she doesn't interact with the outside world, and with this, he can prevent her transformation. In the next scene, Hiyuri invites Yato and Yuki to be with her during the new year. Hiyuri goes to a shrine and sees Nora there. At the same time, Yato is involved with the number of phantoms. Nora sends some phantoms towards Hiyuri, but fortunately Hiyuri manages to save herself. Then Nora tells Hiyuri that the god of Rabble has awakened and came here to kill Yato. And then we understand that Nora has become the new regalia of this god. Yato and Yuki finally succeed in going to see Hiyuri, but Hiyuri doesn't recognize Yato. Yato tries to make Hiyuri remember him, but all his efforts are useless. We see that Yato and Yuki see Nora and understand that Nora is the reason for Hiyuri's sudden forgetfulness. Then Reibo appears and attacks Yato. Reibo is very surprised to see that Yato is not fighting with his true strength. Due to the heavy blow, Yuki is hurt and Yato stops the fight. Nora says that if you want Hiyuri's memories to come back, you have to defeat Reibo. Kofuku tells Yuki that Yato and Reibo were once partners. Yato decides to let Hiyuri stay like this because with this forgetfulness, she might become a human again. But Hiyuri's memories fade more and more. Somehow she doesn't even remember Yuki anymore. Finally, Yato decides to fight Reibo and promises to bring back Hiyuri's memories. Yato goes to fight Reibo and Hiyuri joins them in her soul form. In the fight, Yato can't handle Reibo's power. Reibo is upset about this and asks Yato to fight with his true power. But Yato runs away with Hiyuri. We see Bishamon entering and killing the phantoms. To unleash Yato's true power, Reibo destroys Hiyuri's memory glass, turning Hiyuri into an empty vessel. This strategy works and now Yato attacks Reibo with all his power. The two fight hard, but during the fight Reibo attacks Hiyuri and Yato throws himself in front of Hiyuri to prevent her from getting hurt. Yato's sacrifice brings back all of Hiyuri's memories and now she remembers everything. Reibo gets angry and takes Hiyuri hostage, but before he can hurt Hiyuri, Yato and Yuki use a borderline and Yato manages to defeat and kill Reibo with a final slash. Then Reibo says that I always wanted to be killed by a good rival like Yato. In the next scene, we see that Yato tells Hiyuri that I have to sever all your ties with me so that you can return to your normal form. But Hiyuri doesn't agree and says that I will stay with you and Yuki forever, and the movie ends. Thank you for being with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new videos.